Hello everyone, I'm Ryan Thomas. Sorry for the late introduction there. Having some problems with the YouTube, of course, but this video is dedicated to the 2014 NFL Draft, which takes place May 8th at Radio City Music Hall in New York City once again. And the big storyline of this draft is the fact that there are quite a few quarterbacks in this draft compared to the year before. The first one taken last year was Buffalo's E.J. Manuel. This year, that was at 16. This year, the first quarterback could be taken first overall, which would be very interesting. I'm going to give you guys my predictions, my mock draft of picks 1 to 10, and I'm going to tell you why I feel as if those teams should take those players that I list. Number 1, the Houston Texans hold the first overall pick, and it's a big, big decision for Houston because the two most talented players, in my opinion, in this year's draft are Jadeveon Clowney, the linebacker from Southern Carolina, and the quarterback, Texas A&M's quarterback, Johnny Manziel. Most people would disagree with me, but out of all the quarterbacks in this draft, there is no quarterback that has better playmaking ability than Johnny Manziel. I don't think anybody can deny that, and I feel as if the Houston Texans need a playmaker. They need somebody that can scramble and be mobile and make plays offensively. They have a good offense as it is without Manziel, but could you imagine what their offense could be with Manziel? That would be very scary, having Manziel handing the ball off to Arian Foster. Very scary stuff. Also, it would be even more scarier to have Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt across from each other. You know, Watt on the defensive end on one side and Clowney on the as a defensive end on the other side, or linebacker, depending on the scheme that they're going to run with Bill O'Brien. So that is a tough decision for the owner, Bob McNair, and I have a feeling that it's going to be one that is going to take a long time for them to make. I think that the Texans need to hit this pick, though. They need to make the right decision. And I think that it comes down to, if they want to pick a position of strength and add to that, then they'll take Clowney. But their biggest need, the biggest position of need at this point is quarterback. And Matt Schaub was pretty mediocre last year. He threw the most interceptions for pick sixes, basically, more than any other quarterback in the NFL. So his decision-making was horrible, and I really don't see Houston bringing him back. I don't really see him catching on with anybody for a long time after the season that he had. He might get a backup role somewhere, but he won't be a starter ever again, I don't think. That being said, I think that the Texans would really, really regret it if they took Jadeveon Clowney, and here's why. Their biggest position of need is quarterback. I just mentioned that, and Johnny Manziel is the best quarterback in this draft, and he will be possibly better than some current quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. I think that he has a very bright future. I don't see him going anywhere as far as, I know that the guy has character issues and that, but I think that him declaring in the NFL draft this season shows that he is ready to let that stuff go. He does not want any part of having the character issues that he had. He wants to move on and move forward as a young athlete, and I think that he's going to. Him being the first overall pick does put a lot of pressure on him, but one thing I know for sure about Johnny Manziel is that when he is under pressure, he can play under pressure better than anybody in the NFL draft. So I'm going to go with Johnny Manziel, number 1 overall with the Houston Texans. I think that the Texans could easily finish 10-6 with Johnny Manziel, and possibly, depending on how they play against the Colts, could win the division, which is crazy praise, and it's praise that has only been said by a few journalists in the world, but I really believe that. Their offense, Andre Johnson, his stock would rise. DeAndre Hopkins from Clemson, that was taken in the first round last year, his emergence would be huge. Owen Daniels is still there. They have Garrett Graham as a backup tight end, who's an emerging tight end as well. Arian Foster might have some tread on his tires, but might not have much tread left on his tires, but he is a guy that can really still compete at a high level. So I'm going to take Johnny Manziel there at number 1 for the Texans. Number 2, I think this is actually one of the easier picks for me to make. This pick is held by the St. Louis Rams, who received the pick the second overall pick from the Washington Redskins when Washington made that big RG3 trade a couple years back in 2012. Um, and the Redskins were basically the second, they finished second worst, so the Rams are credited with that pick. This pick is from Washington. And given the Rams season, losing Sam Bradford to a pretty bad ACL injury, they were unable to protect him as best as they could, and they could not protect him whatsoever. And the best left tackle in the NFL draft is also from Texas A&M, and this is a guy that protected Johnny Manziel for the majority of his career at Texas A&M, and that's left tackle Jake Matthews. He has great measurables. He's got the feet of a basketball player. For a guy his size, his quickness is scary. He's moved side to side very well. He's very, very agile on his feet. I think he's actually one of the best left tackles to come out in quite a long time, maybe since Jake Long. And it's funny because Jake Long will be being replaced by Jake Matthews if the Rams so choose to take him. And I think they will. I think that that's the right pick. I think if they take a guy like him, he'll be able to protect Sam Bradford from any sort of injury ever again happening. Number 3 overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think Jacksonville is actually onto something with up-and-coming head coach Gus Bradley, formerly defensive coordinator for the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. I think that Jacksonville, if they make this pick, and there's no question that if they should or shouldn't, I think this is the definite pick here at number 3. I think Jacksonville will take linebacker Jadeveon Clowney. If he falls to 3, which most people say is a shock, I'm not gonna. That's my prediction, but I'm thinking that is what will happen. I think that Clowney will be a centerpiece for the Jacksonville Jaguars to finally use to pull them out of the basement of obscurity and mediocrity that they've had the last 10 years. They've really been an irrelevant franchise for the last 10 years, and with this pick, getting Clowney, they won't be irrelevant anymore, and that's really what they want. They want fans to come to the games and see their big players, and there is no player with more buzz than Jadeveon Clowney or Johnny Manziel. Either one of those guys that put fans in the seats for the skill sets that they have. So Jacksonville, number 3, taking Jadeveon Clowney, the linebacker from Southern Carolina. Number 4, the Cleveland Browns. They had a pretty interesting offseason, firing Rod Chinzinski after 1 year. They go 4-12, and then he's fired. It took a long time. It was a strenuous search for them to pick a head coach. And most people say this is a fallback option, but I really don't believe it was. They hired Mike Pettin, who last season was a defensive coordinator in Buffalo, and being from Buffalo and knowing Mike Pettin's coaching style, I do not think this was a fallback option whatsoever. I really think Cleveland wanted to take as much time as they could on finding the right coach for them, and they did that. I think that by hiring Mike Pettin, it also helps the guys that are already on Cleveland's team who don't get a lot of credit as it is. Joe Hayden, DeQuell Jackson, Barkevius Mingo, a rookie last year in the first round. Paul Kruger was a big free agent. Phil Taylor, a big nose tackle out of Baylor that was drafted a few years ago. Cleveland is not as bad as people think, and the one thing that they need, like a lot of teams in the NFL that have pieces, is a quarterback. And the number 2 quarterback out of the 5, I think, in this out of my top 5, is UCF's quarterback Blake Bortles. I think that Bortles has the best measurables of any quarterback. 6'5", 240, big quarterback, big arm. Great mobility as well for a guy of his size. He kind of reminds me of a mix of Ben Roethlisberger and Jake Locker. He's somewhere in between there as far as the skill set goes, but he has really been great. He holds countless records. He made countless records at UCF, and not that they've really had a great quarterback in their program's history, but he's really blown up UCF as a program. He's put them on the map, and I really think Blake Bortles would be the right pick here. I don't think Cleveland needs anything defensively. Their main need is a quarterback, and that's the second best one available, in my opinion, to Johnny Manziel, and I think that they should take him. Number 5 is the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders, you could make an argument that they could take a quarterback too, that there could be 3 quarterbacks taken within the first 5 picks. You could make that argument. But the Raiders don't have many playmakers at all. as far as guys that can break tackles and all that stuff, guys that can catch passes, guys that can really make plays. And the best playmaker offensively at wide receiver is Clemson's wide receiver Sammy Watkins, in my opinion. I think that he has the best route running ability. I think that he has the best separation when he's one-on-one with a corner. He can really push off the defenders and really make some things happen. And that is high praise because we have a very good class of wide receivers in this draft. Watkins, Mike Evans from Texas A&M, and Marquise Lee, who we'll touch on a little bit later. But Watkins, I think, is the best out of all of them. I think that he has been the most durable throughout his college career as well. There is one tiny little knock on him, is that he did have one arrest, and it was drug-related. I'm not really sure. I don't really want to speculate on what that could be, but the Raiders kind of like guys like that. They like guys that can kind of get into trouble and all that stuff. So maybe that is the direction they'll go in. I think it is the direction they should go in. I think if they have Watkins, and whether they want to choose, to take a quarterback later in the draft, but if they choose Watkins, I think that with Pryor or McGloin, whoever they choose, if they don't take a quarterback, those are the best two in Oakland right now. I think Watkins will be the pick, and that would really help the Raiders' offense tremendously. Number 6 here, I'm going to post that. I'm going to do my first 5. I just did my first 5. I have Manziel, Jake Matthews, Johnny Manziel going to the Houston Texans, number 1 overall. Number 2, Jake Matthews going to the Rams, the left tackle from Texas A&M. Number 3, Jadeveon Clowney, the linebacker from Southern Carolina, going to Jacksonville. Number 4, the Cleveland Browns selecting UCF quarterback Blake Bortles. And number 5, the Oakland Raiders selecting wide receiver Sammy Watkins. Those are my first 5 picks. I'm going to do my first 5, and then I'm going to post my next 5. So there's my first 5 picks. Let me know what you think, and stay tuned for 6 to 11. Thank you.